Joining us this morning, Titania Jordan.
Tatiana Jordan. Did I get the name right? Jordan?
Titania.
Titania. Okay.
Titania. All right. It's Titania Jordan. Welcome everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. Today I'm here with Commissioner Tim Echols. Thank you so much for being here.
Great, love doing this kind of thing and helping people learn more about the commission and just more about life and getting excited about the great opportunities we have.
Yes, and before we get into the nitty-gritty of what you do and what you're working on this year, I just want to let everybody know a few cool tidbits I learned about you. You're the dad of 7 children?
Yeah, we've got 7. Wow.
Wow.
We were busy. 7 kids in 11 years.
Oh my gosh.
Kudos to my wife.
God bless your wife.
She's incredible.
She's a superhero.
But you know, after you get them here, I wouldn't want to send any of them back. I just love them all.
Yeah,
so I can't
good.
imagine not having number 7.
That's a good thing. This is great. And you live north of the city.
Yeah, we're up in Brazelton.
Yes.
Up in northeast Georgia.
It's so beautiful up there. Small world. My dad has a farm up there. And so when you said that, I was like, yes, this is a good man right here.
My daughter has a horse.
Yes.
She's into horses, and there's a lot of racetracks up there. Mm-hmm. One of my sons is into racing. So it's a lot of fun things to do in northeast Georgia.
It's beautiful. And so tell everybody, and before we get in also, you were at DragonCon this weekend.
Yes, went to DragonCon 3 days. Did the chapel for DragonCon. We had about 80 people show up for the worship service on Sunday morning.
Wow.
So a lot of geeks and nerds and Jack Frost, Batman.
Mm-hmm.
The message was Jesus, Peter, and Batman.
Well, that is something my child would love to sit in on, and me too. One of the shows we did recently was on the Jekyll Chronicles. I don't know if you know those gentlemen. I think they were probably at DragonCon, but they wrote a very family-friendly, historically accurate comic book, based in Georgia and with themes of World War I. And it's really cool to meet people of the faith that are doing things in a world that is not typically represented in that regard.
It is important for us, I think, one, to express ourselves and be true to our convictions.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, as an evangelical Christian, I take my faith wherever I go. As a commissioner at DragonCon, in my fantasy football league with my sons. And as a dad of 7, I kind of center my hobbies and my life around what my kids like. And so that's kind of what I do.
It's awesome. It's how you connect with them. And you are an ordained minister as well.
Yes, ordained Southern Baptist minister, and started a nonprofit called Teen Pact, Teens Making an Impact, in 1994, and it's in 42 states now.
Wow, tell us more about that.
Well, initially, the mission of the organization was to turn students into statesmen and develop a passion for citizenship and justice in young people. Mm-hmm. And so we started in Georgia, went to South Carolina the second year, then Kentucky, found some folks in New Mexico that wanted to do it, and then in Hawaii, and we're all over, Maine down to Florida to Hawaii, obviously missing about 8 states.
That's fine.
But including California. But it has been a great experience. About 45,000 young people have gone through Teen Pact over the last 23 years.
Wow, and what is the website for that?
Teenpact.com, T-E-E-N, like teen, pact, P-A-C-T, like teens making an impact.com.
Awesome. Let's be sure to put that in the description under this video so people can learn more about Teen Pact. And you have an impressive education background. You don't just have 1 degree, you have a couple.
I probably should have got out more. I have 3 degrees from the University of Georgia. Maybe I should have went to Tech for one of the degrees.
It's a great school.
Maybe an Ivy League education. But actually, if you have an Ivy League degree in Georgia, you can't get elected to political office. It's just too uppity. Georgia voters aren't interested in Dartmouth, Cornell, Harvard, Yale. No, they prefer their politicians from Athens.
Yes, I have noticed that. That's a good insight. And so what did you get degrees in?
Yeah, so my undergrad is in English. So I really wanted to know how to write. I wasn't a very good writer coming out of high school, so I became an English major so that I could go to law school. Never went to law school, but got a master's in nonprofit organizations to help me with TeenPAC, and then a master's in public relations to help me in politics.
Awesome. And you are now a prolific writer. You just told me about an article you wrote about DragonCon for the Atlanta Business Chronicle, which I will go and read right after we're done filming this. But you also write for some critically acclaimed national publications as well.
Yeah, a number of trade magazines regarding energy. Had a piece in World Magazine, written a book called Real Citizenship, available on Amazon. Required reading for all of our students, by the way.
Yes, let's link to that as well in the description.
Yeah, but for viewers today, if you email me, I'll send you a free copy of that, the e-version. Happy to do that.
Wow, thank you.
For everybody viewing today. So Tim.
Very cool.
Tim at timechols.com.
Tim at timechols.com, ECHOLS. That's so cool. Thank you. All right, now that we've kind of gotten warm and cozy and friendly and everybody gets a feel for where you are and what you've done, let's talk about what it means to be a commissioner. What is your day-to-day like? You know,
we're really referees. A lot of people think we're consumer advocates or judges. We're just referees. We're not really cheering for the power company. We're not the consumer advocate. We're standing behind the plate, so to speak, and calling balls and strikes when it comes to energy regulation. So we want both the power company to be successful.
Yes.
Georgia Power, Atlanta Gas Light, all of the telecom companies that we regulate. We want them to be successful, to prosper in our state, to provide great service, have super customer service, and we want our consumers to be protected, get the best deal possible. But both of those need to coexist together. And so I liken our job to that of a baseball umpire, really.
Wow. And if somebody were to put out a job description for what you do every day, what are some of the hard skills required to really do it well?
You know, I think the hardest thing about this job is getting elected in a statewide campaign. And you think about Georgia, almost 11 million people. You know, how do you position yourself to all of those people every 6 years to get them to send you back to the office? I think that's the most difficult. You know, the job of a commissioner in most states is appointed by the governor. And in those states, you usually do have smarter commissioners, Ivy League commissioners, because it does require a lot of analysis. It would be great if you had an engineering degree or a finance degree, but it's hard for geeky folks like that to get elected. No offense to my Georgia Tech friends. So you wind up maybe with a person that has a little more of a learning curve in Georgia. So, and that's probably why we have a 6-year term, is it really takes a year or two really to get acclimated to the job.
And so, correct me if I'm wrong, so you are not governor appointed in the state of Georgia?
Yeah, Georgia's not. Florida is governor appointed, North Carolina is, South Carolina is appointed by the legislature, but there are 12 states throughout the U.S. that elect their commissioners, and Georgia's one of them.
Cool, so the people like you.
Well, I don't know if they like me or not. I hope they do, because, you know, politics is, as I tell my assistant and anybody that works for me, we are in the friend-making business.
Okay.
That's the business I'm in, is solving problems for people, serving them, showing up when they need help, being available and accessible, putting my email, cell phone number out there for anyone to call at any time, being available on all social media platforms and responding.
Right. And
responding quickly. I think that's what people appreciate the most about me. I mean, some people like my values and the fact that I am an evangelical and I bring my faith to bear on things, but I think most people appreciate the fact that they get respect from me, that when they post a question on social media, I'm going to find it, I'm going to respond regardless of how difficult it is or how accusatory it might be. I want to respond, and I want to talk them off the ledge if they're angry and upset.
Right.
I want to solve their problem if they're having a problem with a utility or a telecom issue. I want to solve that problem for them. I mean, that is really what I live for in the job.
Problem solving is awesome. That's why I love living in the world of startups, because you get to iterate very quickly. What are some of the most common problems that fall on your plate?
You know, a lot of people on the telecom side complain about slow internet speeds. And you know, it's not that big an issue in downtown Atlanta or in the suburbs, but when you get out into rural areas, I think it's hard for kids to get an iPad at school and connect at school, and they go home and they can't even get on the internet at home. That's exasperating, and we have counties where that is the case.
Wow.
And I think it really handicaps kids in rural areas around our state. So that's on the telecom side. And then from an energy standpoint, I think we have a pretty gold-plated company with Georgia Power. They are the J.D. Power #1 utility in the U.S. So they don't do a lot wrong, and that's a real blessing. I mean, granted, we're building a nuclear power plant. It is over budget. We are behind, but Westinghouse, the contractor, went bankrupt. And when you have a company go bankrupt and they violate their contract and turn it from a fixed and firm contract to a time and materials contract, it's a dilemma. And I don't want to leave $5 billion of stranded assets sitting over in Augusta rusting until Jesus comes. I would like to finish this project, but obviously we've got to do it in a way that works. It is an 80-year asset.
Wow.
You think about the new Mercedes-Benz Stadium and the fact that the Georgia Dome, which is not that old, is going to be destroyed and it's going to come down. So when you think about an 80-year asset, and the Georgia Dome's a little over 30 years old, you think about an 80-year asset, that is a long time. That is a lifetime.
Yes.
And that's what this nuclear power plant is. It's an 80-year asset. So a lot can change. Gas prices, pollution regulations, you know, and so it's hard to tell right now and say, well, yes, it's over budget, but won't it one day pay for itself? Maybe it will, maybe it won't. I know the first reactors that we built in 1987 and 89, those were well over budget, 8 times the original price. And now they're the cheapest energy in the fleet, and they have been a great value for our consumers. So, you know, when you plan for that long of a period of time, it's just hard to know what's going to work and what's not.
Backing up to the faster internet speed, access for all, regardless of where they live, what is the quick solution, which might not always be the best, but is it more towers? How do we get these people access to level the playing field?
I think the quick solution, which I don't necessarily advocate for this, is to take the universal service requirement that we have for landlines, right? So Congress enacted a universal service. It said no matter where a person lives, in the middle of Lake Lanier on an island, or out at the forest reaches of Ossabaw Island, or where there's no road to it at all, you still must provide a landline to them at the normal rate you would charge anyone else. So just because you have to go to great expense to get it there, that person doesn't have to bear any of the cost of that. There is an effort, and it's been going on for some years, really initiated by the Obama administration, to have universal broadband service, meaning that everyone would be entitled to a broadband connection regardless. And then you would use a subsidy fund, which is that universal access fund at the bottom of your cell phone bill and at the bottom of your landline bill if you have one. That fund would double or triple. It's got about $8 billion in it right now, but you would double or triple it or quadruple it or whatever it took to get a broadband connection to everyone. I think that's the quickest thing to solve everyone's problem, but because of the cost involved with that, and because of the change in technology. You've got companies really that are doing a wireless broadband service, and some of those connections are very fast. So do we really want to make a law that's going to require, you know, billions and billions of dollars of investment only to find out that there's a better technology out there in 5 or 10 years?
That's a lot to take in, especially with the rate at which technology progresses and the balance of implementing and spending and approving it.
That's right.
So that's nuts. I want to segue and talk about what it means to be an evangelical, if you're comfortable with that. We don't have to.
Sure.
but you used that term a few times, and I'll give you some background for this. You know, growing up in Atlanta, you know, I was baptized at White Road Baptist Church. I always identified with Southern Baptism or Southern Baptist teachings. It was a pretty liberal church, I'd say, though. I mean, we could dance. I know that some people would drink alcohol. You know, it wasn't like, you know, and people make jokes about snake handling and this and that, and you know, there's a lot of teasing that happens around being a Christian and being from the South, and I think a lot of that falls onto terms like evangelical or Southern Baptist, and you know, like my dad and I don't always agree about certain things. We fundamentally agree that Jesus died for our sins and loves us and is our Savior, and if we accept Him and believe in Him, we're going to heaven. But on certain issues that we don't need to get into, we just don't see eye to eye. And so being in public service, having 7 children that might not see eye to eye with you on certain things, and being in a position of ministry, how do you navigate all of that? I know that's a very long-winded question, but I'm just so fascinated.
You know, I came to Christ as an 11-year-old when the astronaut Neil Armstrong, who was the first person to walk on the moon, came to my church down in South Atlanta and shared his story, his testimony of coming to Christ himself, of flying to the moon, looking back on the earth, walking on the moon. Pretty incredible story. Very few people have walked on the moon, you know, that have ever lived. And it was at that revival meeting that I really began my faith journey. And I, you know, like most people, you know, I have had moments in my life where I've been excited about various dogma in our faith that, you know, that frankly some I've walked away from, some I've held. These would be convictions that I might have that wouldn't be, you know, say in the top 10 statement of faith, that, you know, a typical evangelical church might have. And I think that, you know, that people do get a bad taste in their mouth regarding, you know, different nuances of these churches. I think you've hit the big point that God has a plan, that, you know, He loves people, He sent Christ for them, and they should respond to Him. And I think that's the overall message. That was my message at DragonCon, really. Not trying to turn anybody into little preachers or, you know, to live certain lifestyles. And by that I mean just a lifestyle of this Christian denomination or that. So, you know, I think for me as an elected official, when I put that hat on, obviously, and a local radio station asked me this before DragonCon: will your session be inclusive? Will it be open to all faiths? And I told the host, look, I don't shrink back from my faith and what I believe. And so I'm not really going to water down my message. I'm certainly going to present it in a way that's loving, that doesn't make people feel bad, you know, that gives them an opportunity to leave if they want to leave. But I don't want to shrink back from expressing my faith as I live it. And so I think, you know, what I try to teach my kids is, look, you may not agree with me about, you know, about alcohol or about, you know, going to nightclubs or some of the things that I don't do, and that's fine. But here's what we do agree on, and how can I help you in your faith walk? So it's never an easy thing, and I think for me as I put my faith hat on with my political hat, it's about loving others, and it's about serving people regardless of what they believe, how they live their life. It doesn't matter. If you need help with a utility issue, I'm not going to ask you any questions about your faith. I'm going to solve your problem because that's what you have asked me to do as an official.
That's awesome. I'm so refreshed to hear you say that, because it really pains me when Christians get a bad name, or especially living in the South, you're looked at as just uneducated, which is why when I guess accepted Jesus into my heart, you know, when I was 7, But as I grew older and wrestled with things, I really had to educate myself. Well, why do I feel this way? You know, it is definitely a faith element that you can't explain easily, but there is a lot that I needed to learn. So I read, The Case for Christ, which is a great, have you read that book?
No.
It's really cool. This guy who was an atheist tried to set out to prove why Christianity was a hoax. And through his journey, he actually became a Christian. So it's a very cool, well-researched, well-documented book, and it helped me feel like validated. Like here's some hard reasons why this is actually not just a fairy tale.
You know, the First Amendment, not only guarantees the freedom of press, and when those pilgrims came over here and they left England really managed their press. They were very dictatorial over what could be said and what couldn't. I mean, they had the crown and the king. And so as those pilgrims came over here, not only did they bring with them a freedom to worship as they wanted, but they set up a system that allowed the press to have enormous freedom. And I think it is something we need to make sure that we continue to protect. At DragonCon, there was a street preacher out there on a microphone, and my daughter was a little annoyed about the street preacher, and I had to remind her that, look, it's the freedom to dress up as a hobbit is protected here.
Yeah.
But the freedom to stand out and to express your beliefs on the sidewalk is also protected. And so, even though we may not agree with the methodology or the way that a person handles themselves or expresses that freedom, that for the most part, it is probably the thing that sets America apart from all nations in the world, is the freedom of expression. And I do value that, and I do teach young people that it's important, and that we need to fight for people's ability to express that, even if they don't agree with us.
And with great freedom comes great responsibility. I did not make that up. Somebody very important said that. But on that note, whether you're a Christian or you're not, you have a responsibility to promote peace, to promote kindness, to love one another, to serve one another. And if we can extinguish the message of hate and promote that message again of love and peace, I just think we'll be in a much better place. And it seems so easy, yet it seems very, very difficult to implement with the issues we're having in today's society. So anyway, not to go off on a tangent, but I'm so fascinated when I get a chance to talk to people of the faith and hear their perspective. And again, we have such a wide audience. I mean, this is YouTube. People from all over the world can watch. So I also like to give people watching an opportunity to get to know Christians who do love and don't promote hate and care about you and love you no matter what you believe or where you are in life. We just want to love and serve, because that's what we're called to do.
That's right.
And so getting back to our work where we are called to love and serve, let's talk about some of the cool initiatives you're working on.
Yeah, so the Clean Energy Roadshow is something I've been doing for 7 years.
7 years.
It's another kind of a little bit of a controversial topic, because as a Republican, a lot of my fellow Republicans think me driving an electric car, and I'm driving an electric car today.
Awesome. I know we had
in the parking lot.
We're still trying to get everybody up to speed on being electric vehicle friendly.
Yeah, so some of my Republican colleagues think that's a little silly, maybe a little much. But as an evangelical, I really go back to the fact that I do believe God created the world. I believe He gave us dominion over the planet. I believe He's given us resources like the sun, right? So why not take the energy from the sun and use that? In the same way, I certainly agree that anything under the ground is available as well. Well, yeah, obviously we have to make sure that we're not harming our environment, because this planet, we don't know when Christ is going to come back, and we need to take care of it, until that time. So, the Clean Energy Roadshow that I do promotes solar power, wind power, nuclear power, which is carbon free. A lot of people don't know that a nuclear reactor doesn't have any emissions. What looks like smoke coming out of those cooling towers is simply steam. as part of the cooling process. So it is one of the cleanest forms of energy that we have. And then, you know, on the more of the humanitarian side, one of the things that I really try to do is to help the poor with their utility bills. I had a motion to provide some of the Universal Service Fund money, which is at the bottom of your gas bill, to provide $5 million of that to the Salvation Army and a number of other charities that work with low-income people regarding their utility bill. And so being able to take the lead and to make sure that the least among us you know, have heat in the winter, it's an important thing.
So, you know, speaking of resources, and again, it kind of all ties back into faith, but you know, we are given a finite amount of resources, and I think it really comes back to respect. Respecting the planet and the finite amount of resources that there are, and using them in the most efficient way possible, that doesn't harm the earth and doesn't harm humans, but really helps us, you know, advance as a society and keep us safe and happy and healthy and warm or cool, depending on the season.
Yeah, when you drill down in all of the climate debate that's going on, it is a very current event that's happening.
Yes.
And my friends on the left who love the fact that I drive electric cars and love the fact that I promote solar take issue that I won't go as far as they will regarding climate. You know, I have 7 kids. If they had their way, there would probably be a limit to the number of kids that people could have because they're concerned about population control. And of course, I love all 7 of my kids.
Yes.
And I'm not interested in sending any of them back.
Any of them back.
So, and so, as I think about the fact that God has given us dominion, that He made man superior to all the other, you know, animals in creation, I believe that we do have, you know, an opportunity, you know, to to use the resources of the planet as we see fit. And I think a lot of my environmental friends feel like that that maybe mankind is destroying the planet, and that mankind has gone, you know, too far, that we just have the same rights as all the other animals that are here. And I take issue with that because I believe that we do have dominion over it, and it is God-given, and that shapes my worldview as an energy leader. And so I don't have any problem with using any resource, you know, in a wise way, and that's what I encourage people to do.
So while you have this platform of this show today, and people watching from all over the world, all ages and stages of life, what would you like to say to them about how we as a community can pour into you and help you with what you're working on, both personally and professionally?
You know, my advice, especially to millennials right now, is try to get to know your elected officials personally. Get their cell phone number.
Make friends.
In your phone. And it's, you know, they're in the friend-making business just like I am. And look, if you have an issue that you need help from a government official, whether that's you know, the mayor of your small town, a county commissioner, a state representative or state senator, a public service commissioner, all the way up to, you know, people in Washington, D.C. You don't wait until you have a crisis to begin the relationship. And I think that's the biggest mistake that people make in activism, is they wait and then they're panicking and then they're pressed and then they're exasperated that they can't get instant help. It's much better to get to know people as soon as they're elected, build a relationship. I remember us inviting Brooks Coleman, who's now the chairman of the Higher Ed Committee in the Georgia House. Remember inviting him when he first ran for office in 1992 into our house for milk and cookies with our children. And he was campaigning, met him at the door, invited him in, and got to know him in that setting. And as a result of building that relationship with him, we had a voice in his life. And it's not that he's discriminating against others that don't, but look, as an official, I can only help people that reach out to me.
Right.
Right? If you don't reach out to me with the problem, I mean, I don't know that it exists. Right? So I tell people I help everyone that contacts me, but very few contact me, really, relatively speaking. If you look at the 11 million that I represent, very few contact me. And so I do recommend that you get to know officials. And part of the reason I created Team PAC was to help young people not be cynical about politics. Oftentimes, when we just listen to the news, we get a sour attitude and we think all of these people are corrupt, and that's really unfair.
It is.
To make those kind of broad generalizations. What you should do is get to know these people as individuals and vote for the person that you think best represents you, regardless of their political party. And so as you get to know them and build a relationship with them, you not only learn things yourself, but you wind up having a friend who really can just pick up a phone and solve the problem that you might be having in your life.
I like that a lot. I think also people might just be afraid. They think you're kind of untouchable, but that's not the case. You've given your email address. You have publicly declared like you want to love and serve and help people, help them solve their problems. And that's a theme that echoes with you, with Senator John Albers that I've had on, with Chris Clark. I mean, we've had a lot of great leaders in this studio, and the message is the same. We want to serve the state of Georgia, the people right here, and help them with whatever might come their way. So thank you for being open and accessible and willing to help. Really appreciate that.
We do need to teach our young people servant leadership.
Yes.
And what that means, and as opposed to them being self-serving or being the selfie generation, we really want them to, and I think millennials are very compassionate. They are very generous.
Oh, absolutely.
They remind me really of William Wilberforce, the great abolitionist who ended the slave trade in Great Britain. So my message to millennials is love your neighbor, reach out to them, serve them.
Awesome. Commissioner Tim Echols, thank you so much for your time and for what you do for this state, and it's an honor to meet you and know you. Thank you again.
Thanks, and thank you for letting me serve you if you're my constituent. If not, God bless you in whatever you may be doing today.